Hi everybody, welcome back. I am excited because for this video because it is my April wrap-up video, and I'm excited because I think I had probably the best reading month thus far this year. So I'm really excited about that. And what makes it even more exciting is that only one book on this list that I have that I read this past month is my own. All the other ones are from the library or NetGalley. So, like I said, I'm excited because I don't know, it's just exciting, going to the library and choosing books. Although some of the books from the library I read because the holds came in and I had been waiting about like 7 or 8 weeks. So that's also kind of fun when a hold comes in because it kind of throws off like what you're trying to read. But anyways, yeah, so welcome to my April wrap up. I'm really, really excited. I read some really good books. The first book I read was the third novella in the Skyward Flight. This one was I really enjoyed it because we get Jorgen's perspective. And if you have started the series, then you know who Jorgen is. You find out who he is in the first book. But I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to give anything away. After this third novella, though, I'm set up to be able to read the last and final book in the Skyward series. So I won't say much about it again because I don't want to give away any spoilers. But I personally liked the series thus far. But yeah, so I read the third one. I gave it 5 stars. I thought having his perspective, especially so close to the end, I think it solidified a lot of just a lot of things because we're mainly getting to see through the other books all of Spence's perspective on things and being able to finally see some of Jorgen's thoughts and things like that, and kind of how he views their flight mates, and then like Spencer. I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to read the last book, and yeah, so I think also another cool thing about that one is that you find out, or he finds out more about his special powers and things like that. So it gets interesting, it gets intense. It's a novella, so it's not that long, but it gets very, very intense. And like I said, I loved it. I really recommend it. I do think now, having read all 3 novellas, I think the third one, which is this one, Jorgen's perspective, was my favorite. Just because, again, you get to see Jorgen, the world through Jorgen's eyes. The next book I read was a NetGalley book. This is set to come out on July 9th of this year, so we still have some, ways to go, and I'll talk about it. Which reminds me, side tangent. If you don't follow me on Instagram, I'll leave the link below to my Instagram. I share a lot on my Instagram stories about like what I'm currently reading, my thoughts on, or like I'll share my thoughts in emojis and stuff, like, in the Insta stories and stuff like that. And I'm starting to post also like book review snippets. I'm trying to keep it short on there. So yeah, if you guys want to join on Instagram, you can totally join on Instagram. I will share more about this NetGalley book on there once it's closer to publishing date. But this book was like, I guess it's like a mystery thriller. It was so good. A lot of like mystery thrillers, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love them because they're typically always a good time and they always keep me entertained, and it's very fast paced because you just kind of want to know what happens next and things like that. But this book caught me off guard because not only is it a thriller, but it also has like commentary on like mother and daughter relationships, which I thought was really, really, really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. This, I also gave it a 5 stars. This book follows a mother and daughter. It's a dual perspective kind of book. So one chapter might be the mom, and then the next chapter is the daughter. And it alternates like that. So right at the beginning, you find out that the mom disappeared, and there's technically like a crime scene, and the daughter then tries to pretty much like find her mom. They don't have the mother and daughter do not have a great relationship at all. And all of this is like at the beginning of the book, so I'm not spoiling anything. So when her mom disappears, she kind of freaks out, because then she starts to think that she's a bad daughter and things like that, because she doesn't really know a lot about her mom. She just knows her mom is a lawyer, but she doesn't even know like what kind of lawyer or what she does and things like that. So it's intense. So you follow these two characters. Well, when you're following the mom, it's like, it'll say like 5 days before, she disappeared, or 6 days before she disappeared, those kinds of things. So you're following the mom like on the days prior to what happened. And then you're following the daughter days, or like hours. It starts counting her like in hours, like 12 hours after the disappearance or whatever. So ultimately they do end up like like the timelines end up colliding. Like I said, it's intense. I loved it. It's a wild ride. There's so many secrets. There's way more characters in this book that both of them interact with. And what I really loved about this book is that you would think like, oh, I know what's going to happen. Oh, she's totally guilty, or like, oh, she's a suspect, or, like how you guess with thrillers. Some of them you're not completely off. It's just not in the way you thought. So I personally like that, because there's multiple like little reveals throughout the book. So the ending, I don't know, it just all kind of combined together. Yeah, it was intense. I think I read it in like technically 2 days, but I think it was like in 2 sittings I finished this book, because it was just intense and it was good. And you feel for these characters, but then also if you're, a girl and you have a mom, you kind of feel for the daughter at times, because I feel like it's emotions we all went through, or we've all had at some point in our lives. But then also, as you get older, even if you don't have kids, you kind of start to also understand the mom's perspective as to why she did or didn't do certain things. And it's, you connect with both, and I really enjoyed it. Like, again, it's coming out July 9th of this year. It's by Kimberly McCreight. I had never read this author before, but honestly, now I do want to jump into some of like her previous work, because I really, really enjoyed how she tied in this like commentary about like mother-daughter relationships, but then also like at the same time, you're trying to solve a mystery, like it's suspenseful and things like that. So if, you are into mystery thrillers, I highly, highly, highly recommend this. When it comes out, I would say put it on hold at your library, go out and buy it if you can. Do whatever you can to get this book, because it's really, really, really interesting, and it's really, really, really good. The next book I read is Moving to Delilah by Catherine Owen. This is also from NetGalley, and this was a poetry book. I haven't really read poetry besides like in high school. I thought it was going to be kind of hard, and there were like, I was probably going to have to Google or like, look up the definitions for certain things and see what else it can mean, the synonyms. And, I thought I had to go into like this whole research mode reading poetry. And that wasn't the case with this book. It's very modern, and the symbolism, the imagery, the metaphors that she uses, you understand them. But you also because you do understand them, you do know like the double meanings and things like that. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I gave it a 3 stars. again, because I don't read a lot of poetry, so I didn't really know what to rate it because it's kind of my first poetry as an adult, like book that I read as an adult. This book, or is it called a book? I don't even know. This follows the author as she experiences loss and she moves away and she tries to pretty much rebuild her life, and she finds this place that she wants to make it a home. So she starts doing that, and through it all, you know, you kind of walk through it with her through these poems, and some of them have like this melancholy tone to them, but I really, really enjoyed it. Like, it really worked for me. Like, I think it was just like that loss and that moving away, since, you know, we did leave our families in California and we moved to Utah. Like, I kind of, although there wasn't like loss or anything, but that moving away and like that mourning of, in a way of like your old life in a different, you know, place, and the people that were there, and like, you know, trying to build something new here. And, you know, like, I just related to her, and it was, she just wrote it beautifully. She then later, like, you know, finds, like, falls in love with like her home. She makes it into her, like a home, and yeah, it's good. I really enjoyed it. I did read this in a few hours. It's not that big. It's small. Like I said, if you like poetry, I highly recommend this book. The next book I read was Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I have talked about this in like my library book. I go into, I think, very much in depth of like the plot. You're following four women. Well, you're following one woman out of a 4-woman group. And they're pretty much sent to explore Land X. And it's this like land that nobody really knows much about, because it used to be normal land, and then something happened, but they don't know exactly what happened. And then nature kind of overtook this land, and they're sending like groups of expedition, like, you know, to go investigate. And this group that we're following is group 12. And the previous groups did not have a good ending to them. They didn't make it, and things like that, like in different ways. Like, they all ended in different ways, which you're kind of told about in this book, but that's kind of not the point right now. It's weird sci-fi. That's I think that's the, like, a good genre. Like, it's kind of trippy, and you're following this, you know, this expedition through the eyes and narration of the biologist. You don't really know if she's reliable, like if she's a reliable narrator or not, because she makes comments in the book like, but this is as much as I can tell you, or like, this is as much as I want to tell you, you know, or just random comments like that she makes throughout the book that you're not 100% sure. But I don't even know if it really matters to like the bigger plot, because what we find out, I think, is enough. But then it's also, it leaves like that mystery as well. But she doesn't fully want to share also something that she might not know like the full answer to, or like how to explain it, because she herself doesn't know yet, you know. And then there's this book also, towards like the end of the book, it does get a little melancholy. And again, I liked it. Apparently I like melancholy books, so I personally liked it. If you go on Goodreads and things, you know, Goodreads or Storygraph, it's a very hit or miss. You either like it or you don't. And this is the first book in, I think it's going to be 4 books. I think the last book comes out this year, like towards the end of the year. So I don't know a lot yet. I did already pick up the second book from the library, so I'm currently reading it. I'm about 20% in, and I already know, well, it's completely different. You're following a whole different character, but I'm barely getting to the part where it's like starting to tie in with parts of book 1. So I kind of, yeah, I don't know how else to explain it. It's a very weird book. The next book I read was also through NetGalley, and it was an audiobook. So I'm not sure if what's being released is the audiobook or the book or both. But this is a re-release because I believe the author, she published this book independently, and then now it got picked up. So, it's being republished. So it's Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. I believe this is a duology, but this is the first book. I have mixed feelings about this book because I have seen it advertised as a cozy fantasy. So people who usually like Emily Wilde's series or the Legends and Latte series, they oftentimes connect, like they're like, then you're gonna like this, and I think that kind of set me up to be disappointed a little bit. To me, it was not cozy. It was intense. I think it was too intense to be cozy, and the cozy vibes were just kind of sprinkled throughout the book. We follow this prison guard, Reina, and a mage, Keonth, which is her girlfriend. They have these very, very stressful lives. Reina pretty much has to kill anybody for the queen. And her mom did it before her, and it's like this generational job. And Reina has always dreamed about leaving and starting her own tea shop. And she meets this mage, and they pretty much fall in love. So then they do run away, and then, which again, it's Legends and Latte. She runs away. However, in this one, they run away together. They find this little town, and they find this place where they want to convert it into like a tea and bookshop. I think they're called tomes or something like that, but it's pretty much books. I think this is where my brain was like, oh, like Legends and Latte, they're gonna build it, and you're gonna see all this like hard work and this like their love and their passion behind all of these things, right? Like in Legends and Lattes was their passion, like her passion for coffee, and then she meets friends along the way, and then their passion for whatever, and then they all kind of come together and create this coffee shop. They do it together, like them two. They do it together. They do have a set of friends that they meet that helps them and all that. But you don't really get to see too much about like their passion for it. And the stakes in this book are continually happening. So like they run into one thing, it's like a battle scene, and then they go back and like when that like a certain character comes back to see the progress, it's like, oh, so much progress was made, but then you don't really see that progress because they were out over here fighting. Anyways, that's kind of how the whole book is. So then one like I don't know how to explain it, but then you kind of come back from like following one of the characters, and then it's pretty much done, and then they just kind of have to upkeep it. And I don't know, like I did not feel the passion that they had for their teas and their books, which is what I think is what makes it cozy. Like in Legends and Latte, you get to feel their passion for certain things. Like, yeah, there is like trouble, and like, there's still pretty high stakes, but you follow the character a lot to set like that mood and that tone. And same thing with Emily Wilde, like her passion is studying, right? So you kind of follow her as she's passionately, doing her research and things like that. And in this book, I don't know, I just didn't feel that passion for what they were trying to, like the life they were trying to make. And it's just constantly like them like getting into like, or trouble finding them or whatever. Like, I don't know. I think if I would have gone into this with expectations of it to like just be fantasy, like no cozy vibes, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But the fact that I did go into it, thinking it was going to be a cozy fantasy, did not work for me. I mean, I still rated it 3 stars. So, you know, in my rating system, that's a solid, good book. But I would say don't go into it thinking it's going to be a super cozy fantasy, because I think it's more fantasy than anything because of the high stakes. The next book I read is also from NetGalley, and it came out yesterday, April 30th. And the book is The Way That Leads Among the Lost, Life, Death, and Hope in Mexico City's Anexos by Angela Garcia. This book was hard to read, not because it's hard literally to read. It's just the topics that are covered that was hard. In this book, we learn, it is a nonfiction book, and we learn about Mexico City's Anexos. And I'm going to super simplify this. It's very, very complex, but Anexos are basically places where family members send their, at risk or addicted family member to get help, but it's not a rehab, like a certified rehab facility. It's typically from an ex-addict opening up their home and making it kind of like a rehab place, but the tactics that they use is not very conventional, and it depends how you look at it, honestly, if it's good or bad. Like I said, it's a very complex book, and I don't think it's written as like, oh hey, like these are like great places and things like that. It's more of, it is what it is, and people, like, the drug crisis is just so bad in Mexico City that people are desperate and they're trying to like get help for their family members, and sometimes they have to make very, very hard decisions. And what I really appreciated about this book was that the author didn't really try to influence necessarily like how you should feel about it. She just gave you the research that she found, because she does infiltrate, or she does not infiltrate because she was not undercover. She totally just submerges, I think is a better word, herself into these anexos, and as she's researching them, and they touch her life and they impact her life. And you also get to, as you're reading, you learn also about the author's life and her upbringing, and her struggles and things like, and yeah, it was a heavy read. I highly enjoyed it. I think I rated it 4 stars. In the end, it does tie like her personal life and these anexos very nicely, and you feel for her, and but it's just a heavy read. I mean, this book really, really highlights the question of what are you willing to do or risk, to save a loved one, I think. Yeah. I highly recommend this book if you want to know more about, like how drugs have affected like Mexico City, and, different, I guess if you just want to know, what, the drug problem is in Mexico City, and what anexos are, and, who gets sent there and what happens in them, and all that. But just know it is a very, very heavy read, and you should probably definitely look up at all the trigger warnings for this book, because there are a lot. I read a lot this month. So the next book I read was The Honey Bus, a memoir of lost courage and a girl saved by bees. This was by Meredith May. This is an autobiography. I did rate it 5 stars because I loved this book. I think also coming out of the Anexos book and jumping into this one was a good thing, because this has a more hopeful vibe. It's still hard. You follow Meredith, and it goes through her childhood, and the pivotal point where her parents end up pretty much separating and divorcing. They end up having to go live with her grandparents, and her mom falls into like this very deep, severe depression, and her grandmother doesn't deal with it the best way, and it encourages, you know, Meredith's mom. You learn about the toxicity in, you know, generational family toxicity, and like I said, it's heavy too, but you also get to meet her grandpa, and her grandpa, I think, is or was a beautiful person, and I'm really happy that she got to write this book and share it with us, because she really shared a lot of her grandpa's wisdom with us, and I do feel like I'm a better person knowing, you know, some of this wisdom that her grandfather imparted on her. Her grandpa was a beekeeper, so early on, she starts to learn about bees, and bees were kind of her escape or her safe place from, you know, her mom and her grandma and all of that situation. So I do get to see, you know, like how the bees did, you know, it was her, like I said, it was her safe place. And she got to do it with her grandpa, and, you know, it's a messy, like her life was messy, not by her doing necessarily, but just the situations that, you know, happened. But I think it's tied in very beautifully with like the world of bees, and, you know, how they work and how they build what they build, and then seeing how the author, when she was younger, how she would process things, and she would tie it with like the bee world, you know. And yeah, I honestly really, really enjoyed it. And then lastly, the last book I read, I had extremely high hopes that I would love it and I would embrace it, and, you know, all of that. And I didn't really end up liking it. I ended up giving it a 2 stars. And that book is Monstrillo by Gerardo Samano Cardova. This book started off great. I'm not even gonna lie. This book I was really loving the first half. I ate it up. I loved it. It was spooky. It was uneasy. It was very like gothic feeling, and I really, really liked it. I was like, yes, if this is, you know, the weirdness that we're gonna have throughout the entire book, yes, like I was super excited. I was like, another 5-star, great. There was just a shift that happened in that like later part of the book, and it just got really weird and really uncomfortable weird. Like it became a lot about like sex, and it was just weird. It was just I just keep saying it's very weird. But these like there's spice, right? But then there's like that weird spice. And it was that weird spice. Like you get it when it comes to like the main character. But then like there's this other character that you don't really know why she did what she was doing, and you're just like, what? You know? You don't really get a lot of explanation. And I think that's why I ended up not liking it, because then it left me with more questions, and I was not about it. Yeah, I mean, overall it was like spooky and weird. So if you're into like super weird stuff, I recommend this book for you. If you're not into that, like me, I don't recommend this book necessarily. I was not the target audience for this book, like at all. And once I got to those parts, I was like, yep. That's when I realized I was not the target audience. But the first half of the book is great. If you guys read any good books that you guys rated highly and you would love the entire world to read, please let me know down below what those books are, and then I will add them to my wish list. And Yeah, because I'm always wanting to read good books because I love books. We all love books if you're following my channel. So, yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Have a great week and a great new month. Bye.